I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Monday, July the 24th, brought to you in part by Macrocin by Bimeda. Macrocin has proven efficacy at an affordable, upfront price without any BS. End of story. For more information, go to macrocin.com. Also, Joplin Regional Stockyards, moderate offering for them, about 5,000 head. And like I said last week, they just have sold so many cattle here this summer that they've probably about run out of cattle there locally to sell. They've been stealing them from other places because they've sold more than their share. But they'll have about 5,000 head. They'll get started early like they always do and be rolling, have plenty of yearlings and plenty of those calves too. I will say that owner-operator Jackie Moore, which most all of you know, good friend of mine, he will be inducted into the Cattle Marketers Hall of Fame this weekend as part of the King of the Ring festivities over in Dodge City, Kansas. So congratulations to him on that. Puzzling placements. These cattle on feed reports, I mean, you just get to where you hate them. And they're so frustrating. We know how many fewer cattle that we have. We know that it's dry in spots, but for the most part we're in a lot better shape this year than we are last year. We know that our feed is still high, but it is some cheaper. But there's just not as many cattle around, and then they come out with gigantic placements, much higher than last year. And forgive me if I'm wrong, but wasn't it last year when we had mile-long trailer lines, especially in North Texas and places like that, where people were just completely out of anything to graze, and they were taking cattle in there. They were having huge sales. I think it was a little bit later in the summer, but still, it's hard to swallow. I'm going to give you some arguments for why that placement figure could be right. I'm going to give you several more on why it could be wrong. But Cattle on Feed report come out on Friday afternoon, 2 o'clock Central, said that on feed numbers as of July the 1st were 98.2% of a year ago. The average of the analyst guess was 97.6. That was mostly because the analysts missed the placement figure so far. Actually, not all the analysts. One of the analysts, the range was wide. They had it from 96.2 to 102.7 on the range of guesses. And whoever guessed 102.7 was right. Seriously, there's 3% more cattle placed in June this year than there was last year. Weren't we 2.5% short of cattle to start the year in the beginning already? And so that 102.7 compares to the average of the analyst guess, which was 98.1. That just seems impossible. Marketings were extremely light, and that just had to do with the way the days shook out. But they come in at 95.0 compared to 95.2, which is the average of the analyst guess. Despite the light marketings, what I just told you, only 95% of a year ago. Despite that, there were still 17% more cattle marketed than there was placed last month. And still we come in with a figure like 102.7. But, you know, feed is some cheaper than we saw a year ago at this time, but grass and hay in places is hard to find, in other places it's more plentiful. There's more grazing for sure out there. Now we continue to hear that mid-Missouri is dry. Yes, Kansas is dry, but the cattle that have been out on the Flint Hills, it's been mostly dry where it's always dry in Kansas on the western side, especially the southwest side. But the Flint Hills, which runs up and down the eastern side of the state, the cattle for the most part have been out there. They're coming off right now, which this is early for a summer grazing period, but they're only out there 90 days. They're coming off right now, and for the most part, if they got to turn them out, they stayed out there the whole time. There was a few places in the southern part of the Flint Hills where they didn't have enough water for the cattle to drink, so they didn't end up turning those cattle out. But for the cattle that were turned out, I mean, they did it fine out there. There's a few other places. South Texas is dry, but West Texas is wet. All of the West is wet. You know, it's wet in New Mexico, it's wet in Colorado, it's wet in Wyoming, it's wet in Montana. Those are big cattle grazing states, guys. Mostly cow-calf when you get up further north, but for the most part, it's just a little bit hard to believe. So your gains, your total numbers are lighter of placements. It's mostly just your lighter weights, what I mean to say. It's just the ones weighing under 600 pounds. And so that's where your gains are at, on the ones weighing under 600 pounds. Do we see them putting that many lightweight calves this summer on feed? I haven't. People have been turning them out, trying to get the cheap gain on them. As many dollars as they're costing, they're wanting to put the cheap gain on them as long as they possibly can. But that's where the gains were at. Now, I could have believed that last June there was a lot of light cattle put on feed. But this past June, I don't know. Under 600 pounds was a gainer, 7 weights were a gainer, and 9 weights were a gainer. I don't know where we're getting more 7 and 9 weights to put on feed this June than we did last June. It's a little bit hard to swallow. It's just frustrating, but you can't argue with them. You can't afford to argue with them. Most everybody will tell you that. It may be a piece of shit, but it's official, by God. And I'm not sure if they've got anybody in there that's collecting those numbers that can stand back and take a look at them and say, I don't know if that's plausible or not. Let's go back and recheck our figures. But I think that that model may need a little bit of tweaking on, you know. I remember whenever they finally changed the body styles to those Dodges after so many years, they said the jigs were so wore out building those older Dodge pickups that you couldn't slam the door after they come off of the factory line there. But that's one thing you can count on, is they don't change the body style to the Dodges very often, so you always feel like you have a new one. But I think they need to change the models a little bit on our placements. Yeah, we've seen some big auction sales, but I tell you guys, we see big auction receipts when the market is really, really bad and really, really good. Well, the market's been really, really good, and a lot of people have been taking them to the sale barn to realize that, because they don't really have the gall to ask what they might bring in the sale. They don't have the gall to ask that in the country. So we've seen cattle coming to sale more, maybe more so than what we normally do. But you know, like I said, you can't go in there and try to argue with them. And I assume your board, feeder board especially, will be down hard here to open up Monday. Will at least start the day out down hard. And then after that, the grains will probably take over and push it down even more, because they are expecting extremely hot temperatures in the Midwest this week. So that'll push it down some more. And that's just going to weigh on all of your cattle markets. But it is frustrating, especially when you just really, really can't stand back and look at it and see how in the heck it could be that way. But we also had the mid-year inventory report that come out on Friday. All cattle and calves come out to be 97.2% of the same report a year ago. That was 0.5% lighter than what they were expecting even, so that's good. Like I said, there's lighter numbers out there. Where they're getting them all to put a place on feed, I don't know. Your calf crop expected at 98% even. Beef cows at 97.3, but there's another figure in there which is really, really hard to explain. Your replacement heifers that are being capped back for replacement heifers, they were expecting that figure to be 96.4. It come out to be 98.7. I just don't see a big keeping back of heifers. The last couple of months in your big sales, especially out in your ranch country to the west, has been mostly heifers. A lot of those were heifers that were meant to be kept but the market got so good the guys couldn't pass up selling them, and they needed to heal up a little bit. Just I'm not seeing where the replacement heifer numbers are that big. But one number that I always tell you that 3/4 of the calves that are born, beef calves that are born in this country, are born in the first half of the year. That has pulled back a little bit. It's 73.4% of the calves that are born in this country are born the first half of the year. I tell you, we need to blend that a little bit, guys. That benefits your packers. They can cryovac that meat, throw it in a freezer, and they get the advantage there. We need to smooth that out a little bit, guys. People eat beef year-round. Let's talk about our futures for last week. August live cattle futures. Monday was down a nickel. Tuesday was up $1.15. Wednesday up 5 cents. Thursday down $1. Friday down 30. So up and down all through. But August live cattle ended the week at 180.02, down 15 cents for the week. October ended the week 181.90, down 72 cents for the week. August feeder cattle were very volatile this past week. Monday was up 260. Tuesday was down $1.25. Wednesday was down $1.20. Thursday was down $1.70. Friday came back 82 cents. With August feeder cattle ending the week at 245.92, down 73 for the week. September was up a nickel for the week at 249.27. December new crop corn ended the week at 536.25. That was up 22.5 cents a week. So we're lucky that we didn't lose more ground than that on our feeder cattle, with corn up 22.5 cents a bushel last week. Beans for November new crop 1401.75. That was up 31. Kansas City hard red winter wheat for September ended the week at 860.25, up 31.25 cents. And like I said, they're expecting it to be dry in the Midwest this week, or be really hot. I don't know. They may stir up some storms. They talked about that last week, about maybe stirring some storms when it gets really hot like that. You know, it's liable to pop up a big storm somewhere, but expecting to be really hot. Let's talk about your fat cattle trade, which AMS website was down on Sunday, so it was impossible to get all the quotes that I give you, but I know that they were trading fat cattle last week in the 5-area feeding region from 180 to 190. There was a few on Friday in Nebraska and Iowa up to 191, mostly the regionals. And that would have been mostly $4 higher, especially in the northern plains. Mostly $2 higher in the southern plains at 180. Northern plains cash market was mostly 184 to 190. But dress sales in the north 294 to 295 by and large. That's $3 to $4 higher. So pretty good market late in the week, and there'll be good gains on our weighted averages we expect again. Not sure how much movement they had. We'll have to wait and see when they get everything rounded up. Talk about what else is going on. EverAg Management specializes in livestock and grain brokerage, insurance services, advisory services to buyers and sellers of grain products, and vault software. Navigate risk management with Ever.ag. Talk about your feeder cattle market. Your real-time index on DV auction ended the week at 241.10. That was up another $1.77. So your index values on an 800-pound steer were up $1.77 for the week. August feeder cattle contracts on the futures were down 73. That's just kind of the way that goes. But for you guys that attend Beaver County stockyards, or thinking about taking cattle to the sale at Beaver County, they are not going to be having a sale at Beaver County stockyards here this Tuesday. So I wanted to get that out to you. They had key personnel in the back, and they've got a hell of a crew there, but whose mother passed. Most of the yard help and the Slattons and everybody wanted to go to the funeral, and the funeral is on Tuesday. Jeff Slatton said, the cattle can wait. Let's just go ahead and let everybody go to the funeral. they're kind of a family there, and that's kind of the operation that they run. So no sale Beaver County Stockyards this Tuesday. Talk about last week, your cash markets in your sale barns were steady to as much as $6 higher. Good gains in your sale barns last week. Your National Beef Wire stick out sale of the day late in the week or over the weekend was on Friday in Lexington, Nebraska. And look at these 9-weight big strings and loads that they had. They had 935 head of 9-weight steers in Lexington, Nebraska. They averaged 934 pounds with a weighted average price on all of those of $243.14. Very impressive there. Some individual quotes about Wahoo, Nebraska. Wahoo Livestock Sales. They sold 64 steers, weighed 798, bring 254 on Friday. How about Bluegrass Stockyards in Richmond, Kentucky there. They sell 61 steers through the ring, 856 pounds at $249.75. But the most impressive quote that I saw late last week or over the weekend, your Macrocin No BS top quote for the day was also out of Lexington, Nebraska. It was 224 head of 926 pound steers, bring $250. And that's your feeder flash for Monday.